Hello, you're listening to My Pop 5, a pop culture podcast about people. In our show, we bring on guests to break down 5 pieces of pop culture that had an influence on them or helped shape them to become the people that they are today. I'm your host, Ryan, and today, our producer Daniel and I chat with the incredible Pham. Megan's a Vietnamese-American filmmaker living in LA, and after working for the Hurlbut Academy, she started working full-time freelance in the camera department and joined the International Cinematographers Guild. She has filmed for companies including Kia, Pepsi, and the NCAA. Most recently, Megan and I worked together on the short film Jumpin' Jacob, which is created and directed by our former guest, Alex Deeds. Megan is such a joy to be around, and we had so much fun talking with her about the things that she loves. So let's get into it. Here's our episode with Pham. We have Pham here. She is a good friend of mine, works in the film industry out here, does a lot of camera work, and we're so excited to have you. Thanks so much for coming.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Dope. So we always like to get started. If you need to pull up a list, you can, but Can you list what your pop 5 is with no context or no comment?
My pop 5 are Muse, Lord of the Rings, Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, Roger Federer, and Ansel Adams.
Awesome. So Megan, I know you and I have, a bit of history. We luckily come from the same home state of New Mexico. You grew up in Albuquerque. I grew up basically in the Albuquerque area, about, 20 minutes south in the town of Los Lunas. What was your experience like growing up in Albuquerque? Would you say it was a positive one? Do you like the state?
Well, Albuquerque is a very nice place in terms of community. Everyone helps each other out and everything. But I definitely grew up in a pretty hood area of Albuquerque. My high school was right across from a Walmart where a guy got murdered and put in a dumpster and stuff. And
which high school?
Highland High School.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So that's the Central San Mateo Walmart.
Yeah, I grew up off of Lomas and San Mateo, so it's not straight. There's an area that we're aware of called the War Zone, where there's a lot of crime, but it's 5 minutes from the War Zone. But then again, you can drive through Albuquerque in 20 minutes. So,
yeah.
With context, that may or may not matter, but it was a great place to grow up because people are very close and there was a lot of diversity and people pretty down to earth. But there definitely was some rough things like crime and whatnot.
Yeah. And so you were in Albuquerque all the way until you moved to LA.
Yeah. I grew up in Albuquerque and I moved to LA, I believe, when I was 20. I think I turned 21 when I was in LA. I graduated from my undergrad at University of New Mexico in Albuquerque, and then 2 weeks later, I came out to LA.
Awesome. And what started your interest in film? Was it a long time coming, or was it something where toward later in high school, college, you kind of gravitated towards it? And kind of walk me through that experience.
So I think it started, actually now I think about it, it started in high school. So I used to do photography. I took an elective because you had to take electives back then. I was I'm going to take a photography class, and I had this little film camera. Took photos of the Canon AE1, and I developed photos in the darkroom and stuff. I'm this is freaking awesome, And then I got to college. I didn't know what I first wanted to major in biology or international studies and join the Peace Corps, how all these crazy goals and stuff, which is great. But then I didn't know what I was graduate with, and I was talking to an advisor, and she was well, what do you like to do? And I was like taking photos, and I like writing poetry because I used to write slam poetry, as nerdy as that sounds. I used to write slam poetry back in the day. And then just one day I was talking to my advisor my freshman year, and she was you combine those two things. And I was oh, you're right. Poetry is storytelling and photography, and then you combine those two things, it's filmmaking. So then I took a film 101 class, and I fell in love with it. The professor was this awesome British guy, and one of the first classes we were watching a film, and he was film is a medium where it's one of the only mediums where everyone listens to you for 2 hours. Because in a movie theater, people actually put their phones down. And that's one of the few times when people have your full attention and you can spread a message. And I was that shit's metal, And I was I want to go into this. And then I just kind of explored it from there.
And so you got your degree ultimately in film, or what was the official?
It was called media arts back then, but it's basically cinematic arts now. They renamed the program because media arts sounds weird, but yeah, it was the film program at UNM.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You and I met because we have a common friend, which is Ronnie's brother. She co-hosts the show. Alex was working on a music video for my band at the time, and you worked as an AD on that set. So, what do you remember about Puget Sound? And tell me about that experience.
Oh man, so Puget Sound, Washington was this song that you guys made with Great States.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it was like a really warm passion project. Alex, the director, was like one of my good friends, and we were both like getting our feet like wet with filmmaking, and we had a small crew that we were all like good friends. It was like I think there was like maybe 7 of us total, and we were doing it for I believe one of his class projects, but it was a music video, and I remember it being like really gritty. Like at one point, we had to get the camera like off a bridge into a river below, and we had like tied a rope around the camera and were hanging it off the side of a bridge, and then there was one person at the bottom wearing waders like receiving the camera. And I think about that all the time, like that was really freaking stupid, but that's what college film projects are all about, right?
Yeah.
I was like, man, if like we missed, that would have been like the shoot, because we were like outside of the town. And if the camera got wet,
yeah,
we would have had to drive like 2 hours back into Albuquerque.
Yeah, I remember, that film set was a few hours north of the nearest city, right? So like Santa Fe is probably the closest city, and then an hour and a half up into the mountains is where I have a family cabin where we actually, film that, and in that area for the most part. But I remember I was up there a little early getting things set up, and, I was expecting the film crew is going to be arriving at 8 a.m. So I fell asleep the night before, wake up, get things ready. 8 a.m. rolls by, no one shows up. 8:30, still nothing. 9 o'clock, I'm like, uh-oh, something's wrong. And on top of that, there's no cell service out there. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to give them some time. 10 a.m. rolls around, and I'm like, okay, I still don't know what's going on. I need to drive into town to potentially call them. And as I start driving into the like local area, which is about like 30 minutes at the base of the mountain where I get phone service, as I'm getting by, I then see you guys driving back up. So right as I got to the bottom of the mountain, I realized that you guys had almost made it, and there happened to be some issue with the camera rental or something like that. But man, I was so stressed out. Like, here we go, this big project. We're so ready for this, and then the crew is not showing up, and I had no way to communicate.
I don't even, like, from my perspective, I don't even remember that. I probably was just like, oh, I wonder if we're gonna get there on time. Like, it's crazy how I was completely oblivious to that.
Yeah. So I want to want to get into, your experience with these things that you listed, and kind of how it had an impact on some of the things that you're doing. So I want to start off with Lord of the Rings. Walk me through, why did you list this? Why was it so impactful for you? And talk about your experience with Lord of the Rings.
Lord of the Rings. Oh my gosh. I was almost like, do I not put this? Because then I'm going to seem like really nerdy. But I'm really nerdy. It is what it is. So Lord of the Rings, I put that on there because when I was younger, I watched like those movies repeatedly. My siblings and I, like, we didn't have like cable or anything. So we would watch, like, if we found a good movie, we would like rewatch it and stuff. We had the movies on DVD, and we would love watching like the behind the scenes. And I remember watching like the BTS of like the crew and everything. And I think part of the reason why I went to filmmaking is because I used to watch those BTS shots of the crew, and I was like, that is so cool. Like, look how big the camera looks, and like how they're making all these shots happen. And then also just like the themes of the story, like friendship and loyalty and everything. And I felt like they really kind of spoke to me when I was I guess that came out like when we were in like middle school,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. I think it's happened over such a, span of time that if you started watching, similar to now, I think people are having the same experience with the Marvel movies, is there's like, at the end of one film, you have to wait at least a year before the next one comes out. And so you're growing with some of these characters in some ways, and, you hit them at different points of your life. So while the first one may have come out in middle school, it might have been closer to high school that you were kind of finishing the Lord of the Rings series. And
yeah, you grow with it.
Exactly. And what's interesting is, if you think about how dramatic or melodramatic your experience is between 6th grade and 9th grade, a whole lot of life is happening in that time frame, right?
Yeah.
So you're saying that it was just middle school or something, like there's a lot of change in Megan or in Ryan in my situation in those time periods. So it's kind of interesting. Were there any characters or something that you resonated with most, or that you enjoyed the most over that period?
Well, one of my sisters, I have a lot of sisters, so I have to clarify. One of them and I really had a crush on Legolas back in the day.
Of course, of
We're
course.
like, oh my god, he's so cute. Look at his blonde hair. It's all like long and healthy. And now, like, as an adult, I look at it, I'm like, that is like such a bad wig. I'm like, wow, man, I was oblivious. Just like, you ever watch like Power Rangers and you're like,
Sure.
what the hell? Like, that looks so fake. Like, the shots where like they go to the monster or whatever, the robot like destroying the city is like super fake. But like when you're a kid, you don't see it. So I don't know. That was a total tangent. But
do you think it's more because of the technological advancements, or because you now know how the sausage is made working in the film industry that you can point out some things a little bit easier?
I think it's a bit of both. I think it's just general awareness. Like when you're a kid, you're not looking at resolution. Like I feel like if I was a kid and I was watching 280p, I'd be like, "Wow, this is sick." Barney at 280, I don't care. It's a dinosaur. It's more about like the content, you know.
Yeah.
And then as an adult, it's like your eyes, like they notice things. You know, and a bit of probably just getting trained in that field, you know, in filmmaking.
Sure. Yeah, I remember some of at that time, and probably even still today, there was a question of Legolas or Aragorn as who was like the true heartthrob that people really loved, you know?
Yeah.
I was just not part of that, obviously, being
like,
a male, right? But my favorite character at the time was Gimli. And I think part of it was because of his relationship with Legolas, you know? And like they were always really funny with each other and had that back and forth of counting how many things that they killed. And like one of the funniest lines to me is they're counting back and forth like 28, 29. And then Legolas does that like ridiculous OP move of jumping on the elephant and bringing down the elephant, and Gimli goes, that still only counts as one, you know? So very funny.
But if you had to choose Aragorn or
Aragorn.
Damn.
But only because, and this actually transitions to something else that I had when I was viewing Lord of the Rings. I'll be transparent and say that like I saw them only like once or twice or something when they first came out. So I didn't have the like rewatch experience that you had. But before getting ready for this, I rewatched them because I wanted to like remember everything. And what was super eye-opening to me was I've gotten so used to Viggo Mortensen now in his current roles. So like him in Green Book as the old curmudgeon, or Captain Fantastic, you know, that type of role. And so seeing him in a young heartthrobs type of role now with his long black hair, I'm like, dang, he did look like a stud back then, but now he's just like, now I just see him as the old man. So I had like a bit of separation that I had to do.
You know, he's got it going on.
Yeah. Now, if you're telling me like the Orlando Bloom of like Pirates of the Caribbean, that's a little bit different because he was a stud in those movies.
Yeah. You know, I haven't seen Orlando Bloom in a while. Like in my head, he's just like forever Legolas and the guy in Pirates of the Caribbean, you know?
There was this Billie Eilish documentary that just came out. And if you watch it, it's on Apple TV. There's a point that she meets Orlando Bloom and he like gives her a hug and is like, "Oh, I'm such a big fan," all of this stuff. And he's there with Katy Perry, and Katy Perry has this like awesome discussion with her. And Billie Eilish walks back and she goes, "Who is that guy?" You know? And like her brother is pulling out like his phone to be like, "That's Will Turner from Pirates of the Caribbean." And she freaks out. She's like, "Oh no, I wish I could meet him again. Like I blew it because I thought he was just some old guy with Katy Perry." She ends up getting to meet him again and like geeks out a little bit more. But at first he's like being so loving and like assuming that he assumes that she knows who he is, but then nothing, you know, like she doesn't know who he is. That was pretty funny.
That's wild.
With the Lord of the Rings stuff, did you have a favorite of the movies? Like whether it's 1, 2, or 3 or anything?
I think I liked number 3 the most because the action sequences were incredible.
Yeah.
Elephant stuff, the trees. Oh man, spoiler alert. Sorry if anyone. I guess everyone's seen it.
At this point, right? If you haven't, it's like you're listening to the wrong show.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mostly the action. I remember being like on the edge of my seat. And just remembering how everyone, like when it came out, everyone actually like dressed up. To the theaters like as characters, and that's like a fond memory in my brain, you know.
Yeah, no, I think they were all, you know, really great. I think, you know, the score was so impactful and I think innovative. What I also think is interesting is just the storytelling alone. You know, the books were written so long ago, but they were like some of the first, you know, instances of people writing about the mystical hobbits and, you know, orcs and all these creatures were all in one person's mind. And for it to be as like then spread out into, fantasy being such a wide genre now. You see it in video games all the time, and other movies that are kind of following some of these same tropes all were from that Tolkien perspective.
I think he totally influenced like fantasy in a big way. That's also why I love it. But Tolkien could have been sued because just kidding. Well, he could have been sued because my siblings and I used to, the scene where I think Aragorn or someone kicks someone into the fires of Mordor.
Yes.
So we used to reenact that. Like one person would stand up on like the arm of the couch, and then the other person would kick the other kid off.
Oh,
and I'm like, if someone got hurt, man, I don't know.
They needed the disclaimer, please do not try this at home. I think he's fine from getting sued.
Well, he passed away a long time ago.
Yeah.
So maybe it would have been Peter Jackson. Sued, like two children get injured while playing Lord of the Rings.
Whenever you are looking at something like that now after being in the industry, does it change your perspective on how you view movies? Or, are you able to still kind of take it in as like an audience member would?
Oh man, my viewpoint changes because I see everything so analytical now. Like I wish I could detach from it a little bit, because I actually did start rewatching Lord of the Rings like a few months ago. And I remember thinking, man, this dialogue's a little corny. And I was like, oh man, I didn't think it was corny when I was younger, and like just like the delivery and the acting sometimes feels a little forced to me. I'm like, that's something that I never I watched that movie so many times, even like a couple times like in my adulthood too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it has something to do with actually your taste in being analytical, or the fact that like maybe at that time, because it was the first thing of its kind, it didn't feel, so corny, Because I wonder, like, now I started having some of those same feelings, but I was like, if I had never seen any other fantasy movie or anything like that before, maybe I wouldn't feel that way,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. I think it's more of a matter of me just changing as a person and like getting more jaded and old.
That's fair.
It could be because when you're a kid, you don't you're just like excited,
Yeah. Some of the things, and I think, I don't know if it has to do with me growing older or like seeing other pieces of art that do it maybe in a better way, but like I had a hard time buying into like Aragorn's love interest, the elf, I forget her name. Give me Liv Tyler. But whenever they first introduce those characters in the movie, they are like, oh, look, these two are in love. You just have to accept that they're in love and move on with it, right? And then like, so later, like when at the very end, when there's this payoff that she shows up and they get to be together, it's like, it's hard for me to get attached because I'm like, all I saw was, you told me they were in love, but I had no growing with them to kind of feel that same impact.
Yeah, I totally get that when I rewatched it too. Like there was no character development in that regard.
Yeah. And maybe that's okay because, I think it was originally an adaptation of like this source material that like everyone had adored for 50 plus years or whatever that it had been out, that like people already knew these characters. But for the people who didn't, you are taking a leap and kind of just accepting that. But like I said, maybe at that time it was so influential that it didn't feel out of place. There's a lot of rom-coms like that where it's just like, these people are in love, accept it, and you kind of just buy in.
Yeah, you're like, it's just part of the world.
Yeah.
This is it.
Yeah, in a similar vein, I think with that stuff, you had mentioned that you approach it so analytical now. Has there been anything in recent memory that pulled you out of that and you were kind of sucked in to kind of just forget of thinking how the shot was made at the moment?
Ooh, like in terms of film?
Mm-hmm. Or TV or...
TV?
Yeah.
This is going to sound crazy, but I just started watching Fight Club for the first time. Like I had not seen it before, and that actually has me pretty sucked in at the moment. I have like, I think 30 minutes left in the movie, but I started watching it a couple days ago, and then I was like, I gotta finish, go to work, so I like went to sleep. So I was gonna finish it like soon, but that probably was something that I actually was into.
Yeah.
Because the dialogue is so unique, and like it's just such an intense movie and gory, and I'm usually not into like all this blood and stuff, but that's like really pulled me out of it. Because my problem with film, with being like a camera woman, is there's times where I'm watching a film and I don't even hear the dialogue. Like I'm like watching it and I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting shot, or wait, that didn't cut with the last shot. And then I'm like, wait, what are they saying? What are the characters actually talking about? And then I'm like, oh, shoot, I gotta rewind it like 20 minutes. So I have a hard time watching movies a lot. Like I actually don't watch too many movies, which is weird. I'm like, I work on movies, but I don't watch them as much as my friends do.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a weird irony thing.
I think it's normal in some capacity because I had the same experience with music school.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in school, I always would like, after spending 12 hours in music school at rehearsals, and then I go to school to study about music, and then I'm going to another practice, and then I have to go to required concert listenings. And so like every day is music, 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 that by the time I was driving home, that's kind of how I started getting into podcasts or into like sports radio or whatever, something that was just talking or silence. So that way I could just sit there, and because the last thing I wanted to do is sit in the car and listen to some record,
Wow.
And it did a disservice because like there was like a good 5-year chunk where I just wasn't consuming music as a consumer. And I think it did affect me from an artistic perspective. And so it stopped being studious. So I can relate in the sense where it's just like, I not to say you don't get enjoyment from it, but it's the last thing on your mind of when you're trying to just release from work and things like that to go and, consume the same things that you're doing at work.
Yeah. And I spend so much time looking at monitors at work, and then it's like, you come home and then like look at my 55-inch TV. It's like, wow, more screen. Like, is this good for my vision? Like,
Yeah.
I played so many video games as a kid. I'm like, is this why my vision's bad? Like, none of my parents have like contact lenses or glasses, but like all the kids, we all have like contacts and stuff. That's my conspiracy theory anyway.
Yeah. And film, it's even worse. I mean, you average at least 12-hour days, and there's sometimes more than that. So to come home and think about just having more screen time is just already giving me a headache.
Yeah, well, thank you for supporting my, because a lot of my filmmakers, you need to study, Meg, you need to watch more. I'm like, I know, but like my eyes, they're tired.
And I don't know what the healthy balance is, right? Because I think like you're also in a position where you're working on a ton of sets. I know you work on commercials and actual, all types of different projects and needing to work to make your living. So it's also like, you're also trying to work as much as possible.
Yeah.
Right. And just get your name out there and build these relationships and work to, have a living. And then also having to carve out time to hone your craft outside of just the work itself. So it's hard. So I can only imagine.
Thanks, Ryan. yeah, it's a lot. Well, it's like movies are like 2 hours. So it's like, 12 or 13-hour day. And then like you got to go in traffic, and then you get home, and it's like, I want to watch a movie, but then I'd have to like what happened with Fight Club. I like hate like having to break a movie apart. That's like part of my filmmaker side is like, I like to just watch something new in one sitting. But then it's like, if the movie's 2 hours and then like I have to be back to work at 6 a.m., I'm like, it makes it hard to watch stuff sometimes.
We'll get back to the show in just a moment. No, this isn't an ad read, but we do have a couple things that we'd love to share. I've been getting quite a few questions about how you can support the show. The truth is you're already doing it by listening, but if you're looking to do a little bit more, the best way is to support our show is to rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. Rating and reviewing truly does make all the difference for podcasts. So leave us a review, and in that review, tell us what your Pop 5 is, and we'll read it on the show. Another way to help us out is just following us on Instagram at MyPop5. We post short recaps of the show and include video or music clips that are referenced in the episode. They're some of our favorite pieces of content to produce. Anyway, thank you again for listening, and we'll get back to the show. So you mentioned video games. You played a lot of video games, right? So I think that's a good transition for us to talk a bit about Zelda, Ocarina of Time, right?
Yeah.
Did you play it on the initial N64, or did you catch it later?
Yeah, boy, of course.
Well, I
asked. I played it on an emulator on my laptop. No, I played it on.
What's funny is that I'm also a big fan of Ocarina of Time, and that's like, I totally missed it. I was too young when it came out, so I actually did play it on an emulator on my laptop, like when I was in like high school.
Yeah. What was your experience like playing it on? Have you ever played it on an N64 or just on your emulator?
Never on an N64. I didn't beat it on an emulator, but I did beat the remaster on the 3DS. So I've never played the original.
Do you still have your N64?
Yeah, it's at my mom's house.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, we still have it. I was like, do not sell this. Like, I was like, if you guys sell this, I'm going to be really mad.
We were just looking online because I don't know what happened to mine, honestly. And I was looking online to see if I could find one and what they cost. And they're like $300. Like,
really?
Just finding one like refurbished or anything.
Wow,
right
that's like the price of a Switch.
Yeah, that's exactly what his comment was when we looked at it. Yeah, so walk me through that game. Talk me through your experience.
Man.
Why do you love that game so much?
Ooh, well, Honestly, I really like the music the most. The music's what, like, I still listen to the soundtrack to like unwind and everything. And just, man, the composer did such a good job. The music is just, there's just so much feeling to it and so much creativity. And yeah, I don't know, I just like love the music so much. But also, there's a lot of cool, like, for its time, that game had so much like depth to it. Like, I remember lifting the actual cartridge of Ocarina of Time and then lifting like another N64 cartridge, and the one that for Zelda Ocarina of Time was heavier. Like, there was,
interesting.
yeah, it actually like had so much data in it that I was like, damn, this thing's actually like heavier than the other game. Like, I'm like holding Dr. Mario in my left hand, and then I'm like holding like Ocarina of Time in my right. I'm like, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah.
And there was just so much you could do. Like, there was a very open world. You could just explore Hyrule and so many different. And the characters were really cute. They're very lovable.
Yeah.
Like the little fairy guy. Some people call him Navi. I called him Navy, but like he's like your little buddy that assists you and everything. He kind of reminded me of my dog growing up. 'Cause, like, my best friend when I was growing up was my family dog, and I was like, he's kind of like Navy, but for like me in real life.
Yeah. That's so sweet. It is super influential. I'll be honest, I never played it.
Oh my gosh, who are you guys? So we have one guy that played on an emulator and then one that's never played it. I'm about to leave right now.
I think my curse, and you mentioned you have siblings, so I'm kind of surprised this is the case, but for me, like, I almost couldn't play video games unless it was like with my sibling. Like, my parents are like, oh, you have to have a 2-player game so your brother can play too.
Oh, wow.
So we played a lot of games that, like Mario Kart, where we could both play at the same time, or Super Smash Brothers, or those types of things. The one game that I could play on my own, because Zelda, I imagine it's probably like hours long experience to play through the game on your own, right?
It is.
The one I could play and is one of my favorite games for the 64 is Star Fox 64.
Oh, I never played that one.
So I love it because you could probably beat it in a 45-minute sitting.
Wow, really?
Because it's all like on a track, kind of, where like you start on one level, you can't like explore, but you have to like move through all the obstacles and fight through all the obstacles and stuff like that. So if you play well, you can beat it in like 45 minutes, but you could also die and have to keep starting over at the beginning type of thing. So that being said, the only reason I probably didn't play it is because I wasn't allowed to like just sit there and play a single game and not let my brother play for so long.
I spent so many hours watching my siblings play. So like, I have like 4 siblings, and I played games mostly with the 2est that are closest to me in age, because my sister's 3 years older than me, and then my brother's 2 years older than me. The other one's like 10 years older than me, and the one after that's like 13. So I played mostly with the main 2, and that was like all we did. We didn't even really like, because there's not that much, like, Albuquerque is really hot, and like, growing up in an area that's kind of dangerous, and my family's like Vietnamese, they're like, don't go to the park, it's dangerous, like, unless you go with your siblings. So like, we just spent a lot of time like at home, like playing video games and stuff. But I mean, like, even just watching someone play Zelda is amazing, because it's like watching a movie. Yeah,
that's probably why I think there are so many people that gravitate to watching like YouTubers now play video games.
Yeah, it's weird. I guess that's like the modern version of it.
Yeah,
it's like Twitch, I guess.
Yeah, I think about that being the same thing for me, even like going to friends' houses, right? Because that's where I think I got to see people play, even whether it's this game or any others, is going to friends' houses and watching them play.
Yeah, dude, I miss that about gaming, because like gaming nowadays, like online gaming is just not the same. Like for me, like it's hard to, like, I have an Xbox One and I mostly use it as a Blu-ray player, because for me, video games, like the magic of it was like being with people in the same room. And like, I've tried to get like Xbox Gold, and like, it just doesn't have the same feeling, even with the headset, and you're like talking shit, whatever. It's not the same as like talking shit to someone that's like right next to you. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess you just need to host more video game parties.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm pretty good at Smash.
Let's go.
So we should go.
Yeah. Do you play with Link or Ganondorf or any of those players?
Yeah. Yeah. I really like Young Link.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
Dude, he's great, man. Because he has a good balance between like speed and strength. Like Toon Link is awesome because I love Wind Waker. That game's dope, but like he's way too weak. Like he's fast, but like you have to hit them like 50 billion times to kill them. And then like, Adult Link's great, but then he's too slow. So I'm like Young Link right in the middle. And then he has those awesome fire arrows.
That's what I was about to say. I love the fire arrows.
Yeah, that's a good stun tactic. You stun them with the arrow and then you hit them off.
One of the things that I found interesting, I watched a bunch of videos about Zelda, is that how influential of a game it was, right? I think even still today, it's still the highest rated game ever. And I was watching this video that like the creators of Ocarina of Time had issues because like all the developers were telling them that the system wouldn't be able to support an open world game like it currently is. And it was going to have to be something like, I don't know if you ever played Donkey Kong 64
Yes.
or Super Mario 64, where there was like a central hub and then you would have to like jump in pictures to go to a specific level or, you know, click on, I don't remember what happens in DK. I was going to say click on a banana, but I don't think that's how it works. But like you had to go to like this specific tree in order to go into that world. Yeah. They were saying there wasn't a way to do the open world and they made it happen. And it's kind of, you know, so influential that they were kind of the first ones to be able to do that.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's pretty sweet.
It still comes out too, because Daniel mentioned he played it on an emulator and 3DS. And I know some people, you know, only played it like when the GameCube came out. So people are still playing it all the time.
Yeah, that's interesting. I wonder how much has changed from the emulator version versus the original. Like, is it mostly like, are the graphics the same? Are they still like 2D and stuff?
Well, on the Nintendo 3DS, they redid some of the textures. They redid like a Link character model. So he's like updated in like, not high def, because I think the 3DS was like 480 or something, but just the visuals are updated. And then I think you can play like the Master Quest version. But for me, actually, it was when I was in high school, similar to what you said, it was the music that got me into it. I had never heard of the game, and then at one point, there's a song by a band called Rat-a-Tat where they kind of quote Saria's song.
I love Rat-a-Tat.
Yeah. In that song, Shempi. And I remember like looking in the YouTube comments and someone was like, oh yeah, there's that little Saria's song reference. And then there was another jazz group called Bad Bad Not Good. And they did like a medley of like the title song, like the main menu song, and then like Song of Storms and Saria's song. And then I was like, okay, I got to figure out like what this is all about, you know, because I love the music so much. And so it was really kind of the music world that brought me to that game, just kind of seeing it referenced culturally. And that's kind of, you know, why I was so late on it. But still, I mean, I completely agree. I think the music is like almost second to none. Like there's very, very few games that still have that iconic of a soundtrack.
Yeah, seriously. I don't know another game soundtrack that like has stuck in my memory so strongly. Even the other Zelda games, they're like the songs have not even been as memorable. Something about just that music. It's because it's the same composer for like Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. It's the same guy too, but like about Ocarina of Time, man.
Yeah, Koji Kondo.
Yeah, did you geek out and play your own songs with the ocarina or anything like that?
So I have never played any of the songs on Ocarina, but I used to have a flip phone and I had the little text tone on. You know, when you could set the buttons to be different tones, and I used to play The Lost Woods on my flip phone. Yeah, like I would click it, and then that was and then I've also tried to play that on a kalimba. Have you guys ever heard of kalimbas?
That's
are awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And then I used to play, I guess this song is technically it's from Majora's Mask, but the Song of Healing, I play that on piano. Like one of the few piano songs I can remember like 50% of. Not the whole thing. I used to play the whole thing, but.
Well, so you went on and played, I mean, I imagine you're just a Zelda fan in general. You went on to play along.
Yeah. I haven't played Skyward Sword or Breath of the Wild. This is probably controversial because people really love this game, but like I tried to play that game and I got frustrated because it's like too much capability.
Right.
Like I remember I was looking for something and I was running for like 2 hours and I was like, I feel like this whole game is just running across a field. And I like really pissed my friends off saying that. I'm like, but seriously, like it's beautiful, but all you're doing is running half the time. And they're like, well, that's why you use the portals. I'm like, even with the portals, man, this world is like too big for me. I'm like constantly getting lost and like the whole game is running. And I did run across one other person that said that. So
I think it's a popular, unpopular opinion because I mean, I myself did not necessarily think Breath of the Wild was, it's not one that I go back to. Like the other ones, you could play them over and over and over. But I think that Breath of the Wild, like it has the same ethos of Zelda, but it's just not the same Zelda game.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't have the same rhythm of, you know, like the classic game.
There's too much, man.
Yeah.
Sometimes less is more. Because when you have too many options, it kind of takes away from the magic. In a way, I think because there's less characters. You know, like in Ocarina of Time, there's like a handful of main characters and you really get attached to those characters versus if like Breath of the Wild, there's like 50 billion types of enemies and like all these different side quests and like different characters. And like in Ocarina of Time, there's like Zarya. She's kind of mysterious, but that's like his kind of like his childhood friend / in my head, I was like, oh, I think that's like his childhood lover, like his friend, like his crush or whatever. But like that kind of stuff doesn't really exist in Breath of the Wild.
For me, the worst thing too is like breakable weapons.
Oh my god!
I love just having a sword that I can pull out at any time.
Dude, that shit pissed me off so much.
Yeah.
I remember getting the first sword and I went to hit something and it was like, your sword broke. I'm like, swords don't break. Get out of town.
Yeah,
like,
so
what is this?
You're over here smacking a moblin with like a bone,
it's just like
a stick, a branch. Yeah,
it's just it's a time consuming game. Like you break weapons and then you have to run for like hours. I'm like, who has time for this shit? I have barely time to watch a movie. Like, like I don't know.
Yeah, it is definitely like for a gamer who has a lot of.
Well, I thought about playing it like earlier in COVID when work was slow, and I still was like, that's a waste of time. Like, like I don't know. Even though I had time to waste, but
Yeah. You mentioned a bit ago, Megan, that you play around some of these tunes on piano and stuff. I wasn't aware until somewhat recently that you had an interest in music and actually playing it and stuff. So how long have you been playing and kind of what started your musical journey?
Music. I feel bad even saying I'm a musician because I'm talking to a musician and it's like you're the real deal, man. I would say I'm a music enthusiast.
Okay.
But yeah, I studied piano for like a year and a half and that was like a lot of fun and everything, and I kind of thought about going back into it.
And when was that?
That was like high school. But I was like really into it. Like I remember my teacher was like, hey, do you want to go into the advanced class after like a week? Because I was like super into it. I would like practice at home and everything. That I like. He was like, this is beginner classes, like
yeah,
you need more. And I was like, yeah, I do. It's fun. And then recently I started getting into like teaching myself like how to make music on a laptop.
Yeah.
So
like,
yeah.
Awesome. Some music production.
Yeah. And then like one of my friends, he's a composer and he composes music for like film and video games and stuff. And he actually took one of my songs that I made and he embellished it.
Yeah, I saw that.
Did you listen to it?
Yeah, it was so great.
Yeah, I'll show you the original so you can see like what, he definitely made it a lot better, but like both of them have a different vibe to it, So yeah, like in college a little bit, I like dabbled with like GarageBand and stuff. So I dabbled in making like some songs and it was actually really funny. I made a SoundCloud and someone had stumbled upon my SoundCloud and they sent me an email asking me if I wanted to perform at a concert.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, that is hilarious. Like, I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'm just messing around making tracks. Like,
yeah.
I mean, I could do it if you want your levels to sound messed up because like, I'm still learning about all that. Sure. So I didn't end up doing it, but I thought that was really interesting. I was like, what if I did do it? I always think about that. Like, what if I did do that gig?
Yeah. We had a conversation earlier. We had another guest on. We were kind of talking about the experience of growing up in a small place like Albuquerque and then moving to a bigger city like this to pursue artistic endeavors, right? How was your family's response? Were they super supportive? Was there any sort of, you should be doing some other type of career, and kind of, how did they handle your desire to want to be in the film industry?
They didn't really they still don't really understand what I do. Like, I think they're supportive. Like, they're like, oh yeah, do whatever you need to do. But I mean, my family always wanted me to be a pharmacist. Like, that's like the Vietnamese stereotype is like, pharmacy is like easy schooling and you're just hanging out at a pharmacy, you're not seeing people die and it pays well. And so I think secretly, of course, they would have been happier if I had pursued like pharmacy and my original interest in biology. But they I don't know, it's just funny. I don't think they really understand what I do much because like every time I talk to my dad on the phone, he's always like, you work Monday through Friday, right? And I'm like, sometimes. And he's always like, what do you mean sometimes? I'm like, I'm a freelancer. Remember, Pop? Like, freelancer means you work everywhere. He's like, so you live near your work, right? I'm like, I mean, it depends on the day. And he's like, what? Like, they like every time they can't wrap their head around what freelance means.
What do they do? Or what did they do for a living? Or
well, my dad used to be a mechanic. And he used to fix like airplane engines and stuff for like this company. It was called Great in the day. And then he worked at like a car shop. And then he was like a cook for a little bit. He was like all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your mom?
My mom used to own a jewelry shop. And
nice.
And then after that, she was a caretaker.
Yeah. I was wondering, just trying to put it from like perspective of their jobs, right? And see what kind of realm. I think that's typical for like New Mexico though too, right? There's not a lot of freelance type of work out there,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of like the various different career paths. Like Morgan, the singer of my band,
Mhm.
there was one point that he was doing like stage work, like helping set up speakers and things for concerts and rigging work and stuff like that. And that was kind of like freelance, but it didn't come up that frequently. So,
Oh, wow.
you know, a lot of Albuquerque careers are, you know, the traditional ones that you'd imagine.
Right.
And like, there's weirdly a lot of like tech companies there now. Like Facebook just moved there and Intel moved there. So I think like the culture there at least is very Monday through Friday type of work.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's like the pace of life is reflective of that. But I remember like whenever I would come back for holidays and I would show my family like, hey, look, this is me holding a camera at work. They'd always be like, oh, why are you doing that? That looks so heavy. They're like, they'd be like, why are you doing that? This is what an exhausting job. And I'd be like, yeah, but it's fun. And they'd be like, and it's 12 hours. So I don't think they completely agree with like the physicality of it and then the hours of it. But they also know I'm like really driven and stubborn. And I'm not going to listen to them. I'm not going to be a pharmacist.
Yeah, that's a good transition. You know, I think one of your, you know, things you listed here was Ansel Adams, right? And that's obviously amazing photographer, right?
Yeah,
and you mentioned your love for camera and film and things like that. So walk me through kind of how did you stumble across their work? Yeah. And, you know, what do you love so much about it?
Well, I first was introduced to Ansel Adams when I took photography back like when I first took it in high school. And he was one of the artists we studied, and he takes these incredible photos of Yosemite, and he takes like these great landscape photos, and they just like blew my mind because of the way like he does a lot of like dodging and burning, which is like a process when you develop photos where you have like this little like a little, it looks like a spoon, and then what you like cover like, so you put the film into like a projector, and then it projects it onto this photosensitive paper that's sensitive to light, and you set the timer of how long it exposes. And as it's exposing onto the paper, you use like this little spoon to like block the light from hitting certain areas of the photo, so that certain areas get, you know, more or less exposure. And it's like basically it's like painting in a way. And you know, his work just blew my mind. It's already like beautiful, but I remember we were studying like, man, I could remember what painting or what photo it was, but there was like one that he like dodged and burned really cool. And so I just kind of like, I've always loved nature, and that was like, you know, for a while I was like, maybe I'll be a National Geographic photographer, you know. So, and then he also had like, I don't remember his background completely, but I remember being like, oh, this guy had like a hard life, like he had a broken nose because he like got thrown against a wall or something like that. Yeah.
When I was reading about him, I saw a lot of parallels in your work in some ways, right? And some of it might have been me projecting and kind of looking for some of that, right? But you know, some of his most famous works were in our home state of New Mexico, right?
Yeah.
He had like a really good relationship with Georgia O'Keeffe, who's also from New Mexico. But then also, you know, he had like a music side of him too. And, you know, I learned he actually at one point was almost a concert pianist. But like when he was kind of trying to like pursue that avenue, he like had this line that was basically something like, music is super wonderful, but like the music world is like petty, right? And then like there's a bunch of like just inauthentic, insincere people in that industry. And so he wanted to like choose something different. But I mean, that's not what I'm not saying that's how I think you view music or anything like that. But what I thought was interesting is just like there was the parallels of the New Mexico connection and your love of film and and photography specifically, and the relationship with music too, and having that love for music. I was wondering if you kind of were drawn to that character in that, or if it's purely just like, no, he makes incredible photos and I love the technique from the
a bit of both. I had forgotten about the music thing. So thank you for the reminder. But yeah, I do remember, like, because I do really love music. I think if I had to choose a different career, I think I would go and learn about music and do that.
Yeah.
You know.
You might be able to explain it a little bit better for me, because I know nothing about cameras other than I can shoot one on my iPhone for the most part, right? But like I was reading a lot, like what made him so impactful apparently is visualization, right? And what it was like described as to me was basically the ability to, like, when he's taking a photo, he's not trying to capture how it looks, but how it felt. And so sometimes being able to like add some like a little bit of red because he felt some sort of red, even though not trying to catch the image how it currently exists, but trying to make it feel something different. Is that something that you learn in photography, or is that something that like you think about when you're doing your work about like instead of capturing something exactly how it is now, but how you want it to look?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole art of cinematography is like putting your feeling into the work and subtly influencing how an audience feels about a shot without being obvious about it,
Yeah.
like through through color and light and framing and what lenses you use. It all is supposed to subconsciously like impact the
Mhm.
story and help support it,
Is that generally something you work with in parallel with the director? Is there one who has more sway over that than the other, or is that relationship different from set to set?
I mean, generally speaking, like it's always at the end of the day, it's the director's vision and they get the final say. But it depends on the relationship you have with the director. And sometimes directors are like, "Yo, I trust you, just run with it," But obviously, like at the end of the day, you run it through the director. Like, I feel like if I light it this way or whatever, and then they
Yeah.
make the final say. But like the amount of control and stuff and influence depends on your relationship.
Yeah. You and I had the experience recently of working on a project together, right? Our friend Alex has this film coming out called Jumpin' Jacob, and you were the director of photography for that. I got a chance to help out on set and, work on some of the music. But reason I'm bringing that up is because it was so awesome to watch you work.
Oh my gosh, I was so stressed.
I think like you are so incredible at your job. And like, just like, I mean, it may be like standard for, people in this world, but like, you had like little things monitoring, like, I don't know if it was like color temperature of the room or things like that. And like your like craft for just looking at things and capturing like lighting and working with the crew, where as much as Alex had a demand for what he wanted, he also leaned on your input a ton. So I definitely think that you have in that project specifically, had such an impact on the way it looks. And we just watched a final cut together recently. And there are so many shots that it was so beautiful. And so I love I love your work. And I just wanted to compliment you on that. And when I read about like some of the things he did and explained in how he worked, Ansel Adams, it reminded me, I was just like, oh, I can now see that in Megan's work, for example.
Wow, that's so nice of you to say. I appreciate that. Yeah, that was a fun job. We wouldn't have been able to do it without you, man.
Well, thank you.
You were helping run the set, like
sure,
keeping track of the shot list, and Ryan was like ADing on it, which is like the assistant director, and then helps with scheduling and keeping us on track. And he was also running sound. Yeah. So the movie would not have any sound without him, and it's a horror film with like sound is everything. So and also you helped score the track, right?
I did. Yeah.
Did you score it or how did?
I did.
Yeah, and the whole theme. I mean, like that movie was completely. It would have been really non-existent without you. Honestly, like no sound, like no soundtrack, and no scheduling. Like
I really loved working with Alex for that reason. I think he put his trust in a lot of people that he thinks do a good job in whatever they do, right? And that's not to. I'm not saying that to toot my own horn or anything like that, but I mean like. With you, like I mentioned with his relationship, he had the ability to say like, Megan, I trust you to make this look good. And while he was over your shoulder and working through things together, he helped, he trusted you to make this work. And that worked with like people who were doing light or VFX and even me with music. It was just a lot of make it happen. But I also think like he did have his vision though. And it was very clear. So like while I did work on like things musically, so many times it was like a lot of back and forth where I'm like, this is perfect. And there were some things that I'm like, come on, like this is already good enough. And he'd send it back, like be like, I need you to remove this one word from the score. And I'm like, it didn't even end up making the cut, but like little things on the physical piece of paper. He's like, you know how down there it says copyright 1922? I need you to remove this or something. And I'm just like, no one is going to notice this stuff. But like, he did give a lot of trust and it was awesome working with him.
Yeah, I think a good director is relentless in their vision, but also trusting of collaboration.
Yeah.
Kind of need those two things because there's a lot of directors that are relentless of their vision and then they don't trust their team. And then that kind of creates tension within the working relationship. And then people don't want to work for you. And then it's a mess.
Yeah. So ultimately with this, do you prefer the like larger, feature type projects, or what has been like your favorite type of set to work on?
I like them both. I think it's more about who's on the job
Mm-hmm.
and the story in question.
Yeah.
I know that's like not like a concrete answer, but it really depends because I've worked on like bigger jobs and they're awesome, but like schedule was relentless and the people had bad vibes, but the content was great. And then I've worked on like really small jobs where it's like me and all my friends and everyone trusts each other and it's like great vibes on set, but then like maybe the content's not the greatest. So it's kind of like my favorite is when it's a good happy balance between like I'm working on something that everyone else is also working on. We're all like in it for the content because there's a lot of jobs where you're like, oh, what am I doing working on this? And people like drag their feet or they roll their eyes at what we're doing.
Do you have ever a desire to have your own project, or you just like, I'm happy being behind the camera and that's what I want to be doing?
Oh, I would love to have my own project. Actually, I've been thinking lately, I'm like, I kind of miss writing because I used to do a lot of screenwriting back in the day, and it's been a while since I've done that. Just like creatively express myself in that way. I kind of want to like write something, direct and shoot it myself, which like maybe that'll be a mistake, like that'll be exhausting, but I think it'd be a lot of fun because before I wanted to be, first it was like I wanted to be a photographer, and then I wanted to be a director, and then I was like, I don't know if I like want to deal with people and emotions now. Then I was like, I just want to do with making beautiful imagery. Then I was like, okay, now cinematography, but I think it'd be kind of fun to try to direct and shoot something myself.
Yeah. Oh. Awesome. I believe in you. Right.
Oh, thanks, Ryan.
And I don't remember, and we can cut this if it's not at all relevant, but I remember you worked on like a James Young music video project.
Mm-hmm.
You had a hand in some direction or something with that, or were you just acting in it? I don't remember what happened with that project.
I think for that, back in college we worked on a James Young music video. I think the band ended up choosing a different video because I looked like myself and the actor looked too young in their eyes. Which we were. I think we were like 17 or something, like or 18 because we were in college.
Yeah.
I was the AD and I was the talent in that, which was really weird because like that video got more views than the official video. Isn't that crazy?
That's so crazy.
Yeah, like the fans were like, why isn't this the official video and all that? Yeah. And I was the mysterious woman in the video, so I was just like the silhouette, and then like there's a guy who's painting and he's painting like the mysterious woman who's me. So it was really easy for me. I just walked around and like acted mysterious, and they shot me like slow motion, like flipping my hair, whatever.
Yeah.
Were you able to just put the video out? Like you guys just put it online because you had worked so hard on it?
Yeah, so the label didn't end up choosing it, and it was Alex and our friend Josh co-directed it, and they just put it on their YouTube channel and got like, I think it has like 1 million hits or something, or maybe even more than that. And we were like really surprised about that. Like, oh, cool.
Nice.
It's also kind of funny because there's like a quote, sexy, end quote, air quotations, sexy shot where I'm like talking to the guy's ear, and it's like, you don't hear the dialogue. But on set, they were like, Megan, just say something into his ear. And I'm like, I'm not an actor. So I was like, this is kind of awkward. And so on set, what had happened was someone had asked me to go get them a snack from the vending machine. So I went out and it was broken. So in the shot, like a close-up of my lips, like whispering into his ear, I'm saying the vending machine is broken. That's like the line I'm saying. The vending machine is broken. But it looks all sexy and like that's so hilarious.
Oh, I'm going to find a clip, and when we share this, I'm going to share that clip of me saying that.
Yeah.
So I want to transition so we don't run too over on time. Roger Federer. That one was something that was surprising to me. Tell me about your relationship with Roger Federer and how did he have an impact on you?
Okay, so Roger Federer is what made the list because I have been playing tennis for a long time. I played it played it aggressively. That sounds funny. I played it pretty frequently. Back in like high school and end of middle school, and all my siblings played it. We all actually had the same tennis coach. But I used to watch a lot of Wimbledon back in the day. Like we'd watch it live on TV. And Roger Federer really was my favorite athlete, and he still is my favorite athlete because of his demeanor. Like he's so classy. I've never seen him like, with tennis, it's a lot about like courtesy, and like you can get like flagged if you like cuss or if you had bad sportsmanship. But he always was like, if we had a dictionary and you look up the word for class, it'd be like a picture of Roger Federer.
Yeah.
Like, he's so classy, and he's also like a legend. Like he has so many Grand Slams and super humble. I don't know. So I really like his demeanor. Like in back when I was like more impressionable and as an athlete, like I really looked up to him, and like I think in a lot of ways I try to embody that when I'm in a role, like a leadership role. It's like being in control, very focused, and like I try to be like level-headed and stuff.
Yeah. Interesting. I think he's clearly one of the greatest of all times at what he does. And you mentioned Grand Slams and even Olympic medals and all of that stuff. I didn't know you played tennis. You still play regularly, you said?
I'm trying to get back into it. So I played it like 3 weeks ago, and I should be playing like next week. But yeah, I used to play it for like hours and hours in Albuquerque.
Wow.
I feel like, because I was on the tennis team back in the day, and I was like tennis captain and stuff. And then like after school, I would go to the park by my house, and I would play for like hours. So
Yeah, he is really great at what he does. And I was trying to like research kind of some of the things that he does, and it's kind of funny that you said aggressive, because like a lot of like the things they say about what makes him so great is because he's so aggressive, like is why he's, so good at what he does. There are some people who like try to play the long game where they're just like, I'm going to outlast you. And even if this is a 5-hour match, I'm going to win. But he's just like, I don't want to play no 5 hours. I want to get this over with. And so it leads to him being super aggressive.
Well, he's like, I guess like disciplined, like aggressive on the court and disciplined.
Yes.
On the court, and then, but not like aggressive, like cussing or throwing his racket or like making a ruckus or anything.
Yeah. And you said you apply that to like leadership roles and things like that. In your role, like doing DP type of stuff, who are you generally in charge of in those instances? Mostly like your assistant camera folks, or what places do you find yourself most in a leadership role in your line of work?
Yeah, mostly for director of photography work, it's like you're in charge of the camera department. So yeah, there's like usually 2 camera assistants, and then there's like, DIT, and then there's like sometimes a loader, and digital utility. And so it's like you're just in charge of the camera department, and then also like you talk and communicate with the grip and lighting as well.
Yeah. Do you find yourself being successful in that quest to be like him, or do you feel you struggle with that and he brings you back center when you think about embodying yourself in that way?
I don't know, Ryan. What did you think of me on set? Did I seem aggressive?
No, you seemed insanely calm. Like I said, you were just so in your element that it's just.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
I've been told that I'm calm and very like stoic. Like at one time this is me when in an AC position, an assistant camera position. I was not DPing, but like I was building a camera, and kind of a jackass thing to do. But this camera operator, while I was like really focused building this camera, he came over and he slammed the table. Like he slammed his hand on to see if I would like drop the camera, and I just looked at him. He was like, "That was the right reaction," And a lot of people have told me I'm like pretty calm and I get focused. So I'd like to say I do a decent job.
I think you do,
with the Roger Federer vibe. But everyone has their moments. So I definitely have gotten stressed sometimes, but I don't know. People say I'm pretty chill, so hopefully I actually am, because sometimes I feel like I'm burning inside, and like if that doesn't show, that's great.
Yeah, that's just good. Did you ever have the desire to want to try and go further in tennis, like college in tennis or anything like that? Or were you just like, I knew high school was the end?
I think I knew high school was the end, and then after that, it would just be casual tennis, because people are just amazing at the sport. And like I could feel like I had like a threshold, like maybe if I had started younger or was more dedicated to it. But at that time, in college, I had like different interests, and tennis became like one of my top priorities to more like, oh, this is more of a hobby that I'll always love,
Awesome. All right. Transitioning here into your last one. I know this is to be one of your favorite bands just because of how many times I know you've been to concerts. Muse.
Yay.
Tell me about your relationship with Muse and how did it start for you?
Oh boy. Okay. So I'm really, really obsessed with Muse. It started back, I believe, when I was like I think I was like probably like 13 or 14. I used to go to my friend's house a lot, and her brother would be playing Muse in the background, and I'd be like, oh wow, pretty good music. Sweet, like he used to play World of Warcraft, her brother, and he would play Muse while he was playing World of Warcraft. And so we'd be in the other room, and I'd just be like jamming out, like listening to his music. And what I used to do back in the day was and I still do this actually, when I'm interested in a band, I go buy a CD from them just blindly. And then I listen to it, and then if I like them, I'll keep listening to the album. So I liked Muse, and I used to go to the store called Hastings.
Oh, I love Hastings. Yes. And
for people who don't know, Hastings is basically like Blockbuster, but better, because like Barnes and Noble kind of too. It has like books, and it also has music. And this is Was that just in Albuquerque or was that everywhere?
I don't
It
know.
was all over New Mexico. R.I.P.
New Mexico?
Hastings, by the way, it no longer.
But just in New Mexico.
I believe just in New Mexico, yeah. Because I saw it in there was one in Alamogordo.
Really? Maybe it's just a New Mexican chain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I liked Muse. I went to Hastings to do my album thing. And I picked up an album called Harp. What Harp is, it's a CD/DVD set. And the reason why I got that is because I didn't know which album to choose because they had a lot of albums. And Harp, I was like, this is a good spread. There's songs from every album. And it's also a live DVD. So I go home and I put the DVD in and I'm watching it. And I was just like, the singer has a flaming red one piece. He has a suit that's bright red.
Yeah.
And he has a guitar that's a Manson guitar that's glittery with red and silver glitter on it. And his hair is spiky. And the drummer has lime green pants. And I'm watching this DVD and their music can get really intense. And they're known as one of the best live bands in the world. But I'm watching this DVD and I was like, these guys are freaking crazy. This is so over the top. I was just I've never seen this before. And then they play a song called Map. They play a song called Map of the Problematic. And I was like, God damn, this is so over the top. This is almost nerdy over the top, like Dragon Force nerdy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then,
sorry to all you Dragon Force fans out there.
Sorry. Yeah, but I was just like, this is sometimes when it's too much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I watched it, and then I remember the next day I was like, I gotta watch it again. It was overnight, sunk in, you know? And then I watched it again. And then I used to watch that very frequently. That DVD, and then I realized oh man, that gig was filmed on my birthday. That's weird.
Oh no way.
Isn't that crazy? Yeah. And then I kind of started downloading all their music, and then I bought all the CDs. And then the first time I saw them was in 2010 in Rio Rancho. They played a gig.
No way.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Where at?
It was in a casino.
No
Wow.
way.
Yeah, they played a gig back in 2010. And I remember back then I was pretty broke, and I saved up all kinds of money, and I bought $200 worth of merch, which was a lot back then for my age and everything. Bought a mug and a poster and and I was front and center, and it was so fun, man. So their music's been very influential for me because I like their music because of the themes. They have a lot of themes about the universe. They also talk about conspiracy theories, which I think are pretty fun.
Yeah.
And space. And then each album has a different sound to it. I've never listened to a band that has such a different sound to every album.
Yeah.
It's very varied. And then the music is also symphonic in a lot of ways.
Definitely. Yeah. Matt Bellamy has even in some ways a very, I don't want to say operatic, but very theatrical type of voice, and he just shreds on guitar.
Dude.
You mentioned symphonic, and one thing that I took from it is I thought it felt very cinematic. Almost any time Daniel and I recently watched their concert at the Rome Olympic Stadium. And so it's 90 minutes, and we were throwing it on just to say, oh, let's have this on and just in the background. And we both just sat there and watched it for the full 90 minutes.
Yeah, we just watched the whole thing.
That's awesome.
We intended to have it on in the background, and then we kind of got sucked in.
Oh
so
my gosh.
I do think they do have a quality about them that, does suck you in. And I can see, that being one of the best live bands in there, because there is something about it. One of the things that I think being in a band that makes it difficult is mostly when you're in a band and everyone's an instrumentalist like they are, you're required to stay pretty stationary, right? For the most part, you have to be behind your drums, or you have to be behind your keyboards or behind those things. And they did a really good job in that concert of moving them to different places of the stage, right? The catwalk, for example, Matt Bellamy walked to the end, and then the bassist is halfway through with a different microphone. And so they do a good job of being able to engage with the audience, despite the fact that they have to be playing the whole time too. It's not like they have just singer that's just singing,
Yeah. And they're also really, if you watch interviews with them, they're very down to earth and stuff. It was really funny. There was this Spanish TV show that told them to lip sync, and they didn't want to lip sync. They were really against that. And so the Spanish TV show was no, you guys are going to lip sync live on TV. And so if you watch the video, they all switch places. So the drummer,
no way.
he's the singer, Matthew Bellamy, is behind the drums, ridiculously pretending to drum. And it's funny because in the edit you can see the editor was just trying to cut around it, and then the drummer was pretending to play guitar. They were if we're gonna lip sync, we're gonna be funny about it,
One of our biggest takeaways, and it's kind of a funny takeaway, is the bass player just looks so cool.
Dude, he's
Oh.
awesome. He also has like 9 kids or something. So I'm like, that
No
makes sense.
Yeah, he kind of had an interesting background. I was a little bit infatuated with him because, like, I'll be honest, like the singer and the drummer are just like, I think, stereotypical in their looks for like a UK band, you know? But then he just looks like he grew up in the streets wearing a chain, you know? He's like, yeah, I'm just like, and he looks like ripped. And I'm like, dang, that dude looks so cool. And then I look into him and realize that when the band first started, he was a drummer too. And they're like, hey, do you want to just come play bass with us? And then they almost had a falling out because like he had to go to rehab at some point in the band. But like now you mentioned that he has like 9 kids, and I'm like, I need to know this guy's story.
Yeah, he's cool. And he's like not in a lot of interviews, which makes him more mysterious.
Oh, interesting.
You look up a lot of interviews, it's a lot of like Matthew Bellamy and Dom Howard, the drummer, together. And it's always like, where's Chris?
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's also very inspiring because his bass lines are insane. And it's like, wow, he learned bass to be in the band and he's like totally crushing it.
He kills it.
Yeah.
I mean, Daniel put it, well, that like the bass line at the beginning of Hysteria is like what every bass player in Guitar Center is always playing when you walk in, like just because it's so cool. I remember like with them as well, I've never really listened to Muse that heavily, but they've like had like really big pivotal moments, like in terms of like my musical interests, like Guitar Hero, for example. Like Knights of Sidonia is in Guitar Hero, and so I remember that song very vividly. And then like the biggest one was they're in the Twilight soundtrack.
Oh yeah,
like
that's
when they're playing baseball, and like that tune, Supermassive Black Hole.
Yeah.
I'm like, that song rips, and like my main association with it is Twilight, and I'm both ashamed and not ashamed at the same time.
Yeah.
But man, I just think like they've shown up in so many different snapshots in my life that I'm like, I'm surprised I haven't been a fan.
Yeah. I mean, they wrote a song for the Olympics.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was like the Olympic song "Survival."
Mm-hmm.
Good song.
Yeah, and they've done so much stuff. Like, I mean, probably I don't want to say they're most popular, but most commercial in some senses is like Uprising or Madness. I think like those two, and though, like you mentioned, the sonics of both two songs are so very different.
Yeah, you wouldn't even know it's like the same band almost. It's like different.
Yeah.
Well, it's not, like for me, what's interesting is like it's a three-person band and they make so much noise.
Yeah.
Good noise.
Yeah, and it's full sound, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like sparse or empty or anything.
Right? Like I've seen bands that are like 7 people and it's like not as complex. It's like you guys have so many instruments happening, but this doesn't have as much depth.
Yeah.
You know?
How many times have you seen them?
I've seen them live 3 times. I saw them twice in 2018. Maybe it was 2019, I believe. No, one of the two. I feel like a bad fan now. Yeah, I saw them once in 2010. And then I saw them twice on their last tour 1 week apart. So I wanted to buy tickets in LA for their Simulation Theory is the album, the most recent album, their Simulation Theory tour. And then they sold out. So I was like, oh, shoot, I really want to see them though. So I was like, I'm going to Vegas. So I bought the Vegas ticket. Went out to Vegas and I saw them and I made some buddies and everything. I went with my friend Sydney, who's also a Muse fan. And I waited in line for like 6 hours so I could be in front, which is like great because like the lady next to me, she went to 13 gig.
Wow.
Yeah, like Muse fans go hard, you know?
Yeah.
And I still keep track, like I still talk to her. She's like my friend on Facebook and stuff. And then I saw on Craigslist, I was like, the LA show has tickets, you know, because people always sell them. And I was like, Sydney, round 2, let's go. And she's like, I have to work. And I was like, man, anybody want to go with me? And they're like, no. And I was like, fuck it, I'm going by myself. So I went in LA and I went by myself. I did the same thing, like waited in line and made all these friends and like, Muse community is super cool. But you know what's really crazy is when I was in LA and I was waiting for the band to come out, I was standing next to this couple and I was talking to them. I was like, yeah, I was just in Vegas last week. And they're like, oh, we were too. I was like, no way. What? You were just in that gig? They're like, yeah, we were. Where were you standing? I was like, I was standing around here. And then, hey, let me show you some photos in my phone. So I was showing them photos of the gig from my cell phone. And you know how like on the screen there's like the camera people, they'll film the crowd and that shows up in the background. Yeah. So I was showing them photos and like, that's me.
No way.
Yeah. And by the way, this is like, they're like a middle-aged couple. Like Muse fans are all across the board because the band's been, so there's like 17-year-olds that love them. There's like 6-year-olds that love them. And then what's funny about that couple is like we kept in touch. And they invited me to have Korean barbecue with their family.
No way.
And it was like so funny. And so I had like Korean, and this is before the pandemic, but I had like Korean barbecue with them and their 2 kids going off to college, and we've stayed friends. And then I got the COVID vaccine because they're both pharmacists, and they're like, "Hey, Megan, if you want me to let you know when we're about to throw out a dose, we can let you know."
No way.
And then he was the one that gave me my dose of the vaccine.
That's so
And I'm
crazy.
like, from Muse concert friend to someone giving me a vaccine during a pandemic to make me like fight the virus, you know, isn't that wild?
Yo, ride or die, you
So,
Muse fans.
Yeah, dude. So like, could I say Muse saved my life? Perhaps.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
a good note to end it.
Yeah.
No, we do like to wrap things up with quick rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So first thing here, if you could be on a reality TV show, which one would you choose?
Something with Gordon Ramsay.
Ooh, that's a good one. If people have never consumed any of your pop 5, right? So any of the things we've talked about today, what's the one thing you would want them to go experience right now? Of those 5, right?
Muse.
Muse. Obviously, right?
Yeah.
We just added.
Maybe
Okay.
it'll lead to a COVID vaccine for you. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, or lifelong friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So who is the director you would be most excited to get an email from asking you to DP their work?
Oh shit. I think Sam Mendes would be pretty cool.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, just because
Nice.
1917. Oh my gosh, that was like a cinematic masterpiece. Obviously, if he asked me though, I probably would just like die because I'm not capable. I would just melt on the spot.
Yeah.
But like in an alternate universe, that would be amazing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. What's something that you'd say you learned about yourself during the pandemic?
I would say I learned that I'm very eclectic.
Okay.
My friends keep telling me like, I don't know, it just like has casually come up in conversations with multiple friends where I'm like, how would you guys describe me? They say eclectic. That's interesting because yeah, I guess like with the extra time during the pandemic, I've gotten more into like, I mean, look at what I'm wearing. I'm wearing like a floral shirt with pink pants.
You're killing it, lady. You're killing
And I
it.
got like these big ass pink sunglasses, and I really like dove into like makeup experimentation and looks because I feel great about that because before, you know, I worked a lot more and I'm getting busier now, but you know, at work I have to just wear black. So during the pandemic, I really like was looking at my wardrobe and I like opened the closet and like half it's black t-shirts. And I was like, oh man, so I guess I've learned that I really love color and patterns and, you know, self-expression, and like I blast a lot of music when I'm not, you know, at work, and I listen to world music. I made like a world playlist on Spotify. So I guess I've learned that I am eclectic.
Awesome.
Yes.
What are 5 words or phrases that you tell a past version of yourself?
Ooh, it's okay to be alone.
Okay.
Just basically don't work as much as you do.
Take a break once in a while.
Yeah,
Have fun.
exactly. Yeah.
Is there anything you want to promote or a place people can go follow you?
Yeah, you guys, if you want, you guys can follow me on my Instagram, I guess.
Which is?
It's my first name, Megan, Megan, and then it's a period, and then it's Pham, Pham.
Awesome.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, thank
Cool.
you so much for joining us, Megan. We love to have you. Like I mentioned before, I'm such a huge fan of your work, and I know you're just going to be uber successful, and I can't
Aw.
wait to see all the exciting projects you're going to be a part of.
Aw, that's so awesome. What about you? Are you guys going to plug yourself? You guys should listen to my Pop 5.
Thank you. Yes, we
Sounds
add
right.
an outro at the end, but yes. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, guys. Bye.
That'll do it for today's show. Thank you so much for listening. If you want to see clips of the films or music that we talked about during the episode, check out our episode recaps featured on our Instagram. They're usually posted every Sunday, and you can see the archives there as well. You can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at MyPop5. And if you haven't already, please subscribe, leave us a rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next week, but until then, what's your Pop 5?